There were some pain points in transportation. For example, if you take somebody from Battaramulla, they would take an hour and a half to get to the city, hour and a half in the morning, hour and a half in the evening. You lose so much of your life just on the road. So there were people from the outskirts of Colombo who were buying because they wanted to live in the city close to where they worked. Taking lessons from on 320, we got this idea that we should have another dense project in the middle of the city to cater to the urbanization and the migration that is happening into the middle of the city.
And I think also we looked at the pain points of young professionals today. If you want to buy land and build a house, it's practically impossible to do it in the city. And you have to do it, like Roshani said, 10-15 kilometers out of the city and spend 2 to 3 hours of your day commuting, which eventually is about 4 to 5 years of your life that you spend on the road.
We actually did the math on this. And by the time you're 60, it's about 8 years of your life. By the time your child is 18, you've spent about 3 years of the child's life in the car. And this came to me when a friend of mine actually told me she knows her driver better than she knows her father. And I asked her why. Is because she commuted from Maharagama to Bishop's College every day throughout her childhood. And this was her life. And I think this is a common trait. So, if you really look at why we did TRI-ZEN the way we did it, I think what's really cool is the way we thought through it, right? For us, it was not about just building another project. It's a question of how do you redefine what it means to live in the city? How do you really just take that quantum leap forward and get into the shoes of the future resident of Colombo and think about, look, what is this person going to need? So, of course, transportation is a key thing. The question is not only like what's your travel time. It's like, what are you going to be driving around in? Are you really going to use a car, or are the ride-sharing services and public transport in 5 years going to be so much better? And we said, yeah, absolutely. So we could kind of design for it. What's the future fuel? Is it all going to be diesel and petrol, or is it going to be electrics? We said most likely it's electric. So TRI-ZEN has 1/3 of its parking slots which are EV charger enabled, which is unheard of. So, at every step of the way, we started to look at like, what's it going to be like to live here in 5 years, live in Colombo in 5 years, and can you engineer a product for that? And at multiple levels, right? So if you look at the kind of mission behind it, if you will, it's really to help people to come back into the city. So we've gone to a huge amount of pain to try to engineer TRI-ZEN and get efficiencies out of TRI-ZEN so we can put it and make it accessible to a wider population. Not just the 0.5% of Colombo, but really the up and coming executives and the kind of the young professionals and so on, give them access. So that's why we've got a really interesting project, but we're also working with banks on mortgages. We're trying to make it as efficient as we can. We've got gobs and gobs of community space. We've got over an acre of community space on a 1.5 acre site. And that's kind of unheard of. So every step of the way, it was all about, look, what is this future urban dweller going to be like? What are they going to need in terms of community space, in terms of facilities? What's their lifestyle going to be like? And thinking through every step of it. And what we always say when we talk about it is, look, the concrete box is just the beginning. And that's how we kind of look at property in a very different way, because we're involved not only in just building properties, right? We manage malls, we manage golf courses, we have all kinds of stuff throughout the group as well. How do you bring people into a completely different lifestyle? How do you really redefine what it means to live in the city? And how do you create a product around that? And that is TRI-ZEN.
We have a total of 891 apartments, which is probably one of the most dense apartments in the city. But if you look at it in terms of the facilities like Nayana explained, with a half a kilometer jogging track, with ample common spaces. You have actually a badminton court on the 51st floor, and you can play it while watching the sunset. So what more than that, And also in terms of the apartment sizes, it ranges from 471 square feet going all the way to 1,041 square feet. And what we really looked at was to make this product, as efficient as possible, and also so that it's accessible to majority of the market. And that's why the pricing starts from 23 million upwards for 1 bedroom.
And we priced it in rupees,
Yeah.
right? So that was a strategic call because not many of the large developers price any of the projects in rupees. Everything's in dollars.
Yeah.
And a year back we took the call and said, you know what? People have a hard time absorbing this currency fluctuation. Let us manage it. Let us take that bet, and let's help our customers manage it. And we priced in rupees from day one. And now it's very clear that that's a huge value proposition for our customers, given what's happening.
Sometimes people wonder, how do I give up my house? Can I move into an apartment? It's small, it's compact. I'm used to living in this huge house garden. And, am I compromising on my lifestyle? But think about it, the lifestyle you have in your landed house, you have to drive to the gym, you have to drive to the restaurant, you have to, take some transportation to wherever you want to go, to the beach or to jog. You drive to Independence Square to jog, you don't jog in your garden. But here, you just come down and you have all of that in one space.
Or within walking distance, right?
Or within walking distance. So it's really not a compromise on your lifestyle, but it's an enhancement of your lifestyle.
Today, if you look at most of the developments in the heart of the city, about 30 to 40% of the car parks are vacant. You go in there, there's hardly anyone there. There are a few reasons for that. So if you look at, Sri Lankans living overseas, when they come down for a few months, they use one of the ride-hailing apps. Then if you look at, the foreigners working in Sri Lanka, they're either cycling to work or they'll use one of the ride-hailing apps as well. So hence the reason why, we kind of engineered this product in a way that, you have the option to purchase a unit with or without parking if required.
So we did a pretty rigorous study on this, and what you find is the further you get from the city, the more the need for parking. It's kind of obvious, but we actually checked all the buildings. We did a survey of all the buildings and found that, in the heart of the city, these parking lots truly are empty. So the question for us is, if somebody's really challenged and, getting housing in on budget is hard, why would you build 300 or 350 extra square feet and keep it empty and price that into an apartment? It doesn't make sense, right? So minimize that requirement as much as you can so that you can pass on the savings to the customer. That's the kind of the way we looked at it. And clearly, the location of TRI-ZEN, you can walk to practically everything. In 5 years from now, it's going to feel stupid to have lots of parking. And if you look at more developed countries, the parking requirements are very, very low. We have an anomaly because we say 1 unit of housing has to have 1 unit of parking as per the building regulations. The general regulations, of course, there are exemptions in that, but it's the regulations that are problematic. If you take, a building like the Gherkin in the city, it has something like 50 parking slots for the whole thing. So parking is going to be a thing of the past, and I would suspect in 10, 20 years, we're going to be trying to figure out how to repurpose parking that we've built, and TRI-ZEN, we're taking a leap forward in trying to push that in.
If you look at the number of completed apartment units in the city today, it's approximately 16,000 units. And you look at, in terms of the number of occupied houses in the city, it's at 200,000 plus. So we are less than 10% of our occupied housing are apartments today. Whereas you compare it to the region, you look at Kuala Lumpur, they are about 70% plus apartments in the city. Mumbai and Bangkok are as high as 80%. So that's kind of our trajectory and where we are going to get to. But right now, if we move from where we are at 10%, even to 20-25% in the short term, that's where you'll see the exponential growth coming in.
Even if you look at it from a woman's point of view, you know, when you're managing a house, you're managing a family, children, husbands, all of them together, this is easier to manage because one, you're in the middle of the city, you have access to anything within.
Your commute time is less.
Your commute time is less.
You don't have to leave your kids and go everywhere.
Number one. Two is you can access supermarkets, restaurants, churches, mosques, temples, anything, hospitals within minutes. Plus cleaning. You know, we all know what it is like to maintain a house, and you know, as the house ages, what difficulties you have in repairs, calling a plumber, calling a repairman is not easy in this country. But here, if you are in an apartment complex, you just give a call to the office downstairs, they come and fix it, whether it's the bulb or the pipe or whatever.
Security as well.
And security, whether it's a family or even singles living. Just the security that it offers, I think makes it all worth the while.
So there's something interesting maybe worth noting, right? So what we find in Sri Lanka is lots of young people get their education, get a job, buy a car, then buy a house. Maybe buy a house or maybe build a house in the burbs. But the fact is, cars are really bad investments, right? So the way we look at it, can we help those folks actually buy a, apartment and then buy a car? Maybe you never buy a car because you don't need a car, right? So it's it's like really changing the thinking around this, because what we find is a large swathe of the population is excluded from the real estate market, and in the current environment in particular, real estate is perhaps one of the most stable asset classes. And that's why it's called real estate. We're now working on trying to get vehicle loans converted to housing loans, and we're in discussions with a couple of companies. Because, at the end of the day, I keep coming back to this point. It's not about a building. It's about, can you engineer a change in the way people live? Can you give people a fundamental different way to access and live in the city? And through that, really change the fabric of the city. If we get 800 people to live here, at least 500 of those people are not going to get in their car to go to work. Imagine, and that's like 3 hours less times 500 people every day. I've not calculated the carbon footprint of this, but I'm sure it's huge. Yeah. Right? But like this, when you change the way people live, the impact of that is actually really large. And I like to think that that's what keeps our staff going. There's so many developers around, but we're not just trying to build buildings. We're actually trying to change the city. And I think that makes it a little bit more exciting, gives you something to, wake up for and go after. Okay, so here's the thing, right? So John Keells is the largest developer in the country, but it's not only development that we do, right? We manage, I don't know how many square feet, maybe over 100,000 square feet of office space, probably about 150. Yeah, so we manage, over 100,000 square feet of office space within the city. We manage 3 malls, Prescat, K-Zone, and the 2 K-Zones. We're of course building the largest private sector development in the country, which is Cinema Life, which is a game changer in its own right, in a completely different product, but again pushing the envelope. Then of course we've done lots of apartment projects, right? So what we were looking for is, look, how do you pull all of this together and build a company around a core set of values, and a core set of values around change and making change and creating new environments. So we've got this tagline of creating new worlds, because every time we do a project, we look at redefining that environment, creating something out of nothing really, and really envisioning what the future can be, and trying to kind of make that happen. It's kind of an exciting, fun thing, and it helps all of our staff to kind of focus on what we're trying to do. Not just build another concrete box. I want to rub this in. It's not just about building another concrete box. It's about how do you really drive change and how do you create these new environments, new worlds for people. We think that John Keells Properties will be one of the, at the forefront of creating the new Colombo.
Yeah, so there again we were looking at the whole convenience aspect for our buyers. So our smart homes here, whether you're seated in London or wherever you are, you can just get on a mobile app and open the door. Or if you want to give just a 24 or 48 hour passcode to someone, you can do that as well and they can access the apartment. Then in terms of the other smart tech aspects that we brought in, we also have voice controls where you can just say, hey Google, turn off all the lights, and everything goes off. So we'll show you this in a little while. And so in terms of tech, because it's the tech that we have right now, and we are enabled to take on the better tech that will come in 5 years. But if you look at it, this is the whole value addition that we give our customers. It's about embracing community living and living in the heart of the city with all of this smart tech enabled as well.
I think the thing to note is that tech isn't an afterthought. It's built into the DNA of TRI-ZEN, for example. So it's hardwired to take the technology, and we're basically continuously working on this. So between now and 2023, when we will open, we will continue to develop the function. So now if you come to the show flat, you see a set of functionality, which is still already pretty cool, but it'll only get better. And we'll keep working on this IP, on the intellectual property, to really work out a home automation function or a package that really works for the resident of TRI-ZEN or the resident of Colombo really tomorrow. So it's I would say that's one of the pieces we're having the most fun with. And it's really way ahead, and I think it's the only truly smart building from the ground up in Colombo at the moment. Probably one of the very few in this part of the world, to be frank. So I think it's going to be a real game changer. Yeah, I said create new worlds. So create
a few words.
We've got quite a few things that we are cooking up. I can't obviously talk about them all because of confidentiality reasons. But I would just say that we really want to help people access the property market, and we're very, very focused on this new segment that we're looking at. And to really extract the maximum amount of efficiency and access that we can do. We've got a pipeline of projects that we're cooking up at the moment, but we will still continue to play in the luxury segment as well. Of course, we've got Cinnamon Life, which is nearing completion. In about a year, we'll be opening that up, and I think that's going to be just an amazing kind of landmark development. And again, we see lots of depth there, and that will continue. So we have generally a very, very optimistic outlook for Colombo. Yes, we have these hiccups and whatever, but we're very, very confident that we'll get through it. And regardless, people still will live in Colombo, and people have to kind of get on with the show, so to speak. So we want to help them along.
When you say TRI-ZEN, what comes to my mind? I think convenience, smart, innovation. We do have some innovative designs there, which you haven't seen in the market before. And I think the homeliness, despite it being a dense development, and I stress, it's quite homely, and the facilities offered makes it quite homely.
I've got 3 sentences with 3 words each. Push the envelope, change lives, transform the city.